Join me today as we talk about some quirks in clan linguistics. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name's Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about some quirks in the languages of the clans. Well, language of the clans. In universe, the clans speak American English, and but they have certain phrases and certain little quirks that separate them. For instance, they do not use contractions. So no can't or won't or isn't or anything like that. It's cannot, will not, won't, things like that. And if I recall correctly from the founding of the Clans trilogy, that comes from Nicholas Kerensky, the gentleman who founded the clans, Alexander Kerensky's son. Then his brother, Andrei, I don't think it was Andre, I think it's Andrei Kerensky, contributed several phrases, but one in particular. Now, one of them is the term AFF, A-F-F, which is the shortened form of affirmative. Now, this is going to sound odd because of that whole no contractions thing, which is to shorten words. All of these that I'm about to talk about are shortened versions of words, but are in the clan lingo. So there's AF, which is affirmative, which can be used as an answer, but if you're like AF, you're asking it as a question. But to clarify that it is a question, it is QUIAF, Q-U-I-A-F-F, and that stands for the term phrase query affirmative, query being a question. And so as to specify that you're asking someone. QUIAF is in right, So then you also have neg, which is the shortened form of negative for no, but can also be, depending on how one emphasizes the word, how like in real life, how in English, you can say, that's correct, no, as in you're emphasizing it as a question as opposed to the answer, which is simply no. You can tell the different ways I'm saying it, no as opposed to no. And you have the same thing with neg, so you have neg or neg, and then again, like with AF, to emphasize that it's a question, it's quineg, Q-U-I-N-E-G, query negative, as in you're asking no, as in you're asking the question, the word no like a question. And these words are used in the novels quite a bit. Fortunately, at the very least, the newer ones by Catalyst, and I say this because I have not read older ones published by FASA, so I don't know if they also have this. I assume that some of them have to, or that by context you can figure out what they're saying. But the newer ones, for sure, by Catalyst, have an index of these kind of words back in the back. And not just this stuff, but also things like explaining what a PPC is, because sometimes the books just use the phrase PPC and don't explain that it's a particle pulse cannon. It's a type of weapon that's on the battle mechs, and also some of the tanks, but primarily battle mechs. And so some of this stuff is in the back of those books. And I don't recall them being in the WizKids Dark Age era books, but I could be wrong. And also it took a while for the clans to do anything notable there. So anyway, so you have those, and those are phrases that are used that are derivative of actual English words. And then we have a couple then we have some other words that are just new words entirely as far as I can tell. One of them is Zellbringen, which is the system of ritualized combat that the clans use. And the term itself is for most of the rules, which are things like, one-on-one fighting. I think the whole bidding of forces falls under Zellbringen. But essentially, it's the clan honor combat system. And it was developed over centuries among the clans. Looking into it, looks like Clan Coyote was the one that started what would eventually become Zellbringen. And in fact, they began using it in the Battle for the Pentagon Worlds, whenever they had to retake them at the very founding of the clans. And then over time, the other clans adopted it, to the point that when they got to the Inner Sphere during the clan invasion in 3050, they attempted to apply it to the Inner Sphere, and the Inner Sphere is like, sure, yeah, so you guys are only bringing like 10 battle mechs, right? Yeah, well, we'll see you on the field. And then they show up, with their, 50 battle mechs and tanks and infantry and everything else, and the clan's like, oh, what the hell's this? And the Inner Sphere's like, the hell do you mean what the hell's this? Like, you were stupid enough to tell us what you're going to bring. Well, of course we're going to bring more stuff. We want to win. Zellbringen, what the hell are you talking about? And by the end of the war, they figured out that that the Inner Sphere was probably only just going to use their rules against them. So they stopped using them against the Inner Sphere by and large. So they do not automatically go in with Zellbringen in effect. However, they do offer it to who they consider to be honorable opponents within the Inner Sphere. But between clans, they still use it. So you have that. Then you have Dezgra, and I might be mispronouncing it. It's Dezgra, which essentially means dishonorable. And it can be used as like an insult, and kind of like the word surat. But yeah, it mainly means dishonorable. Like Dezgra behavior would be dishonorable behavior. Calling someone Dezgra means they're dishonorable. Typically, if they break the rules of Zellbringen, that's one of the things you will call them. So that's another term there. Then, stemming from their eugenics pseudo-cloning pod people program, you have Trueborn, which are the people that are created in the Iron Wombs using the genetics of previous generations. These are most of the clan warriors. At the time of the invasion, that's almost all the clan warriors. Whereas now in the Inner Sphere, which is a century later, because the invasion was in 3050 and the current timeline's in 3151, 3152. By this point, huge chunks of some of the clans, fighting groups, the entire clan army is the clan Tauman, Touman. I believe it's N. It might be M-E-N. I'll put the spelling up here because I don't remember right off the top of my head if it's M-A-N or M-E-N. But that is like the combined fighting force of the entire clan, essentially. Large swaths of it are no longer Trueborns, just because they need the numbers. Because of holding vast territories in the Inner Sphere, they just can't produce their pod people fast enough, essentially. So they allow in freeborns, which are people who are born the old-fashioned way. Now, from a fighting, like assuming you buy into the clan business as far as like that their warriors are superior and everything, which there's some credence in the universe that that's true. Then, if someone had two parents who were Trueborns, but they were freeborn, they would still benefit from the many generations of eugenics that took place before that point. That stuff doesn't just stop. It's just that their existence came about from a random combination of genetics of two superior genetic samples. So they would still have most of the benefits that they would have in terms of biology. And in the recent Grey Death Legion books, they actually encounter someone like that who ends up, I believe, joining the Grey Death Legion, if I'm recalling correctly. Yeah, he did. And he still is fighting fit as any other clan warrior. So that's a thing. Now at the time of the invasion, they used the clans used the term free birth as an insult. And they would typically level it at the inner sphere folks, because they're all free births. And it's meant to be an insult. And I think it's still considered an insult among the clans a century later, even though larger and larger parts of their fighting force are no longer trueborns. Oh, well, yes. One other word that comes to mind, and this, a little late to be saying this, but this was not meant to be comprehensive, because I'm sure there's plenty of the clan lingo that I'm missing here. This is just a short little bit. That would be Isorla, and I might be mispronouncing that, Isorla. That is essentially like the salvage from an operation. So they claim, the remains of the enemy battle mechs, things like that. It's kind of like the prize for winning, So anyway, that's just a little look into some clan terminology. If I find enough to make a part 2 to this one, I will. But I think I hit a lot of the high notes here, so. And I do intend on doing some stuff as far as like some of the weaponry and things like that, so you know what all the little abbreviations stand for. But that's pretty much it for this one, so let me know down in the comments if there's any particular word or phrase that I missed if you're a BattleTech fan, because I'm sure that there's plenty that I did. If I get enough together, I'll make a part 2 like I said. Any of these things sound just thoroughly bizarre to you? Whatnot, let me know down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting the things that helps grow the channel, and I always appreciate it. But other than that, thank you folks for watching, and just remember, no guts, no galaxy.